Chef Lopez, and today we're going to make Eggs Benedict. Being that we talked about eggs a couple of weeks ago, we're going to continue our knowledge on another way of cooking eggs, and that way is making a mother sauce, the holiday sauce. For the holiday sauce, you need a couple of ingredients. Those ingredients are egg yolks, butter, lemon juice, and water. For this recipe, we're going to use 3 egg yolks, 9 ounces of butter. One of these sticks of butter is 2 ounces, so we will use 2.5. The juice of 1 lemon, and water. Now for the water will serve as our insurance just in case the sauce starts to get thick. So I would say about half a cup of water is perfect for this recipe. Now before we start our sauce, we're going to get our mise en place together so that everything runs smoothly. And for that, we're going to need a pot with about 2 inches of water, as well as a bowl. In this case, I'm using a glass bowl so that we can do a double boiler. A small pot to melt our butter. A pot to make our poached eggs. And lastly, a saute pan to cook our ham. In addition, we will need a whisk for our hollandaise sauce, a ladle for our butter to pour in to our hollandaise sauce, a perforated spoon for poached eggs, tongs for our ham, a knife, a serving spoon, and 2 towels. One of these towels is moist and 1 towel is dry. For our Eggs Benedict, I have 2 eggs that have been cracked into a bowl, ham, a piece of bread, and if you have it, a pinch of cayenne. One thing I forget to mention is the toaster, an additional plate once you're ready to plate, and a spatula just in case, maybe if needed. Right? So let's get started. To get started with the Eggs Benedict and our hollandaise sauce, what we have to do first is turn on our double boiler, and I'm turning it up to a medium heat. Our pot for our poached eggs, and we're going to get that 9 ounces of melted butter melted. So when making hollandaise, for every egg yolk that you are using, you need 2 to 3 ounces of butter. Now you can use whole butter or you can use clarified butter. In this instance, I'm using whole butter because it gives the sauce a much more creamier, richer taste. So we'll get that going. Wait a couple of minutes before we actually start our sauce. And what I want to see here in this pot is that the water starts to simmer very gently. So we want to make sure that our butter is hot, but not too hot. If our butter is too hot, what ends up happening is that we will curdle our eggs when we're incorporating that butter into the sauce, the eggs specifically. So we want to make sure this is melted, maybe get it to the point where it's starting to bubble, and then turn it off, just to make sure that that butter is nice and warm. Now with the water for the bain-marie, we want to make sure that we get it to a gentle simmer, even maybe a little bit before simmer, just so that the eggs won't curdle as you are working with them. So now that we have our water working for our poached eggs, our water working in our double boiler, and our butter melting, we just want to make sure that we have everything in place so that this process goes a little bit smoother. So we're about to start our hollandaise sauce. I've placed my damp towel on the cutting board. I'm going to place my bowl on top, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my whisk, incorporate my 3 egg yolks into that bowl, break them up, start whisking them, add a slight touch of water, maybe just about a tablespoon or so. Whisk that egg up, and then incorporate our lemon juice. Now that's the juice of half of lemon. The juice of half a lemon. What I'm going to do next is, again, incorporate everything. And what we're looking to achieve here, once I add this to the double boiler, the volume of this egg, water, and lemon mixture should triple in size. What you should also see is that as it triples in size and cooks, essentially, you'll see that you'll be able to lift the egg. Right now, I'm not able to do that. But as we cook it, we'll be able to see the egg being cooked. So I'm going to take this to my pot. At this point, it's just under a simmer, so it's a good starting point for us. Our butter has melted and is now just on a low setting here in the back. So one thing that you want to have in handy, if you might need it, is an additional towel, just so that it helps you during the process. So at this point, we're just whisking those eggs in the pot, in the bowl. And we want to make sure that we are continuously whisking, just so that the eggs do not start to cook. Take it off the pot for a second. As you can see, it still needs more time. So this process roughly takes anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. And what you are looking for, again, is for the egg to triple in size. Now, as I am whisking the egg, our water for our poached eggs is going, and it's almost there, reaching the point where we are ready to drop those eggs. And in a second, once I've started my sauce, I'm going to toast my bread, poach my eggs, give my ham a little saute, and then we'll be ready to assemble our breakfast. So you can see that as we are whisking away, you want to make sure that you get the sides of the bowl so that no egg on the side gets curdled. And at the same time, you are seeing the change of the consistency on that egg yolk. At this point, what you can see is that the egg yolk is getting thicker by the minute. And the point that we want to get it to is that actually at this point, right? So you can see now that we can actually make a little ribbon on our bowl by just simply lifting up the spatula and the whisk and moving the egg around. Okay, so at this point, I'm just simply going to take it off of the heat. And what we're going to do now is get our butter. Get our spatula. Ladle. And what we want to do and make sure is that we are incorporating that butter in increments, a little bit at a time. What will happen is if we incorporate this butter too fast, this emulsion or joining of two will break. It will separate. So start very slow. Now, if you think that your egg mixture is a little too thick, what you can do at this point is add just a touch of water, that insurance that I mentioned earlier, and just whisk it in. So I'm going to add just a touch more water, and that's about a teaspoon, maybe less than a teaspoon of water, and begin incorporating our butter. Now, as I mentioned, you just want to make sure that you incorporate it a little bit at a time. As this emulsion gets thicker, you'll see whether or not it needs more water or not. Now, another way you can actually do this process is by actually switching this butter into a container instead of using a ladle. And now we're ready to incorporate. Incorporate a little bit of water. Gonna incorporate just a touch more water. Now, I did mention that for every egg yolk, you incorporate 2 to 3 ounces of butter. For this recipe, I'm using 9 ounces of butter, but you can use 6 to 9 ounces. I believe we're almost at 7 ounces, so just 2 more ounces to go. So at this point, I am going to reserve 1 ounce for my toast. I'm going to add just a touch more of water just to make that sauce a little bit smoother. I am going to taste it. So at this point, I'm going to reserve 1 ounce of butter for my ham and my toast. And at this point, what I'm going to do is taste the hollandaise for a seasoning and to see if it needs any additional acidity. So what I am going to do is add some salt. And a good teaspoon should be enough of salt. Incorporate that in. Taste one more time. And good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the pot that I was using as a double boiler, right? So now that our water has come to a simmer, I just want to lower it down so that it doesn't go into a rolling boil and that the water is ready for our egg. Before we start the poaching of the egg, however, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to toast my bread and I have my toaster here ready to go. I want to make sure that I get the toast fairly dark, because what ends up happening is that the toast will actually absorb the sauce, the runniness of the egg yolk, and so then you want a piece of toast that can actually withstand uh, all those uh, all those fluids. At the same time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my ham. I have my saute pan here. Turn up the heat. I'm using some of that leftover butter to actually saute our ham. Uh, if you have bacon, you can do bacon in advance. Typically, Eggs Benedict is served with Canadian bacon. Um, but being that I don't have Canadian bacon, I'm just going to use some ham. So I did mention that we have to make sure that we are keeping a constant eye on this, just so that the sauce doesn't overcook. So I took it off the steam for a second or two. Wait for that to go. And again, I have 2 pieces of ham here. What I'm simply going to do is just fold them in half and place them in my saute pan. Give that ham a turn. Once you have ham, once the ham has achieved some color, we're simply going to turn off the heat. I've lined a napkin on top of my plate so that it absorbs any additional or excess butter. Place it on top. My toast is ready to go. It's nice and toasted. What I'm simply going to do now is I'm going to cut my toast in half. Get my plate. Place my toast on the plate. My 2 pieces of ham, 1 piece per toast. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start poaching my eggs. Now, before we start poaching our eggs, we want to make sure is that we add a tablespoon of white distilled vinegar. Now, the vinegar is going to help keep the egg in its shape, intact. It's going to help coagulate it as well. But the reason of the vinegar is so that the egg does not get too big. So, I have my 2 eggs ready to go. I'm just going to raise up the heat a little bit more so that water gets to the simmering point. Once it gets to that point where you see those bubbles, then just lower the heat a little bit. And I'm going to make a vortex with the perforated spoon. Now, this helps form the egg. Once we have a nice vortex going, then we're going to simply drop 1 egg at a time. Now what we're going to do is wait for 3 minutes until the eggs are ready to take out. So once the 3 minutes have passed, we just want to make sure that we get our egg with our perforated spoon, place it on a napkin before we actually place it on our ham and toast. Just be gentle. Place it on our napkin. Get rid of any excess water. And you see, by doing the vortex, we actually get nice poached eggs. It's okay if it falls down, just pick it up very gently and place it on top of that egg, right? Now, to finish it off, we are going to move our pot for a second and bring our hollandaise close to us. Just give it a little whisk, right? If you think that it needs just a slight bit of water, go ahead and add that water. If not, and you are content with the consistency, then the hollandaise is ready to use. I personally prefer just a touch more water, just so that the sauce is nice and fluid. And that was about a teaspoon of water. So mix that in. And there's a nice fluidity that I'm seeking. Great. Bring the hollandaise sauce over to your eggs. And with this serving spoon, get some of that sauce and pour it over your eggs. Get it a little bit more. And lastly, one way to finish off these Eggs Benedict and hollandaise sauce is to add a pinch of either cayenne pepper or paprika. And now we feast. Enjoy.